My name's Tony Eades, so you know me from the same guy that opened up today. I haven't changed. I'm still the same guy, except I'm switching roles to give you a bit of a masterclass on conversational marketing. So we're going to deep dive in the next hour to look at all things conversationally. So just a little bit about me. So I did open at the beginning by saying I'm a brand futurist, and you know I've done a few interviews on radio where they've said, well, what is a brand futurist? So the best way to explain it is, as a brand futurist, we work with brands today on how they need to prepare for the future. So whereas a futurist will tell you about lovely flying cars with Uber and all this kind of stuff, which is all exciting stuff, but we're thinking, well, what does that mean to us right now? So as a brand futurist, my job is to work as a strategist, if you like, with businesses to help them prepare for what's going to be in the next, say, we're now talking about 2030, because obviously 2020 is next year, and what do you guys need to do right here, right now to start preparing for that? Does that make sense? So that's what a brand futurist does rather than just a futurist. I'm also a strategy officer for a digital marketing company called Sorted Stone. We're a HubSpot Diamond partner, so I'm going to sprinkle a little bit about HubSpot in there. If anybody has heard a bit of HubSpot, we did mention it, I think, a couple of times in the last session, or anything to do with software or platforms. It's so important in this digital age that you kind of get one and back it and get with it. So happy to have conversations with you throughout the day. We've got a stand there as well at Texpo. So just make sure you take this time over the next 2 days to have these conversations. It is conversational marketing about finding out what everything is all about. So today is about the conversational growth strategy session that we're going to do, which is really about how do we create good, meaningful, measurable conversations with our customers, our prospects and our customers. And I want to kind of take you back to where it all kind of began. So let's just go through a little bit of a history lesson and kind of have a look at where things kind of started. So since the 1800s, we've been looking at all ways of communication technology. This is what it looks like today, but what it looked like back then was all this kind of stuff. So we had things like the telex, we had the first kind of fax machine that came out where you left a message. We had personal computers that came back in the 1980s, would you believe? And then Google sort of came in. That was around the 1990s. And then we kind of moved into our kind of mobile space and we started using these big BlackBerries and these smartphones and all kinds of stuff. And then we kind of had our first instant messaging. And then we moved on to apps around the 2010s. And these apps kindly brought us in together. They started to communicate more than just a one-on-one situation. They started to bring in things like Snapchat and Messenger, all these ones that we all know. And that kind of grew, so we started sharing our lives. So our lives are always on now. It's 24/7, wherever we are, certainly if you're using our Twitter channel and anything else. And the usage is getting more and more. So we do it personally between each other one-to-one, but do we do it as collectively and collaboratively and personally with our customers? Probably not. So this session today is all about how do we build that relationship with our customers. But the idea of conversational marketing is nowadays we need to start thinking about talking to an audience of one, right? Before we had the thing before conversational marketing, it's called, that word beginning with A, is advertising. So advertising was all about how do we get our message to market in a very one-way situation. It was all about ramming your message down the throats of the consumer and the customer, whereas now conversational marketing is more about having a two-way interaction. So to have a two-way interaction, you've got to have that one-to-one conversation. And that's why I was saying at the very beginning here, we need to have things like software to manage where our customers sit in a certain buyer journey. We're going to cover a bit of that off today. How do we understand where they sit in the buyer journey? How do we understand where our clients sit in a persona? Like, what are they? How well do you know your customer or your prospect when you're even talking to them with your marketing? So how do we identify who the persona is? And then we need to build that conversation path. So how do we have a conversation with them that actually makes sense to them where they sit right now in that buyer journey and who they are? So it's all about having that conversation and being interactive and being educational and in the moment. Like, you think about it now, we all want things today, don't we? We don't want to wait for stuff. Like, how frustrating is it if you think about if you've got to email someone and wait 24, 48 hours for a response? Like, we need to know now, and it's only getting worse. So let's go forward from here. So what we're really talking about today in this conversational marketing class is slow, bumpy, and expensive models have to go. So if your business, now it's not even just your marketing, it's your whole business. Think about this as your whole business, your sales department, your marketing department. If it's slow, bumpy, and expensive, and you're delivering a full service, you're only open 9 till 5 and close for lunch on Saturdays, and you expect people to buy from you first, without trying it first, then time's limited. Like, you're not going to be around for long. You need to change this thought process about how do I move from a slow, bumpy, and expensive model to a fast, flat, and free model. So fast, flat, and free basically means the opposite. It's self-service. People can go to your website, they can go to your business, they can go to your social channels, and they can self-service, they can self-select. I showed that website at the beginning that we just launched for RESMED. If you check that out at resmed.com.au, you'll see how that's a self-service. You go in there and you start looking at your solution, and it takes you to where you want to be. We don't have the time to look at a website and try and work out who thought of the navigation without any UX strategy behind it. We need to be open 24/7. Our consumers today do not live 9 to 5. Most of the buying online is done after hours. We're all busy people during the day. Our customers and our prospects are as well. So how active is your buying cycle or the ability for people to engage with your brand after hours at any time of the night? And then the last one is try first. So free can scare a few people off because we don't want to be giving away free. How are we going to make any money? The idea here is try first. How can we give someone a sample of what we do? A software company gives a free trial. How can we put our product into the hands of the consumer or the customer before they even part with anything? Because we're so confident you're going to love it, we're just going to give it to you. Have it for 30 days. Have it for a week. Play with it, use it, enjoy it, and then we talk about how much it costs. So we need to start thinking about that. Who's heard of Simon Sinek? Everybody in the room, surely, yes? Okay, Simon Sinek talks about the brand. Mark talked about it earlier on today, the brand story, the brand essence. This is something I just want to touch on. It's something that I do a lot of, hence being a brand futurist. But if you sell what you do today, you're purely a vendor. But if you sell why you do it, then you're a brand. Okay, people buy from people that they believe in. It's that belief system that Mark was talking about earlier on today in this session. So we need to think about it. Like, start with why, as Simon Sinek talks. So if you haven't watched it already, and quite a few, I run brand strategy sessions, and a lot of people in those sessions, I make them watch the TED talk from Simon Sinek called Start With Why. It's a 17-minute video. Watch it. It will change the way you think about your marketing messaging. So Simon Sinek, we're not going to be a vendor, we're going to be a brand. We need to think about how, if we're a brand, people will believe in what we believe in, they want to be part of what we do, they'll be part of our tribe, and then we can have a deep and meaningful conversation with them. But what is a brand? The best description I've found of a brand is this. A brand is what people say about you when you're not around. You can't control what they say about you. So while you're sitting here today at Digimark on Australia, New Zealand, what are people saying about your brand right now? That's the brand, right? And that's where we need to get our brand story clear and concise on all of our channels. Our website should be singing from the same song sheet as our Facebook feed. The biggest hassle I think people have, or challenge that people have, is that you have a separate person doing social media, a separate person managing your website, a separate person taking the first phone calls, and a sales department over here doing whatever they want. Like, they're not working together, and the consumer can see it, they can feel it, and you don't have a true brand. And we need to do it because of these guys. I shared this picture before. This used to be my millennial slide of someone just kind of looking at what's going on in here. But it's basically just to show about the range of different buyers that are out there today, our audience, our customers, right? And what it means to us. So let's think about the baby boomers, for example. The baby boomers were kind of simple to deal with, like easy to deal with. Not simple to deal with, but easy to deal with, because the baby boomers understood that you matter, right? Your business, your product, your service, you're the expert, you matter, okay? And then we moved on to, the next generation, which is obviously looking at the Gen Ys, and the Gen Ys were about I matter. Sorry, I missed the Gen X. The Gen X is we matter. So the Gen Xs were collaboratively, let's work together. We understand you're the experts, but let's work together. The Gen Ys are about I matter. But then, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've got these Gen Zs coming in now, this next generation of people. And I think they're all about they matter. They're all about the fact that it's collaborative, that they will be the ones that look for, write-ups about your company. They're going to look at, how you're rated. They're the ones that go to TripGo to actually have a look at, the ratings for somewhere they're going to stay. They're the ones that are all super connected because that's how they've been brought up. So we need to think about these 4 different generations because most of us would have customers that fit into those categories, some more than the others in those different categories. But how do we change our conversation to each one of those generations? And that's an important part, just by thinking about things like your buyer persona. Because one of the main things we need to realize is that today, more than ever before, the buyer knows what they want when they want it. They can find it. Thanks to our wonderful friends at Google and the internet giving gratification whenever they're looking for something, social media giving them instant shareability to be able to share whatever they find with others. People know what they want when they want it. So we have to be understanding of who these customers are and these prospects that are out there. So what I thought I'd do in our session today is kind of bring it back to this thing I'm calling a love story. And I've made it really simple for you guys because we've actually even built a whole interactive page called sortedstone.com/conversations. Works on a mobile, should work on a mobile, otherwise I'm not responsible. Or check it out after the session. But it will tell you a little bit about, in an interactive way, two things. How we should be communicating today. So these interactive pages, it's built on a platform called Ceros, C-E-R-O-S. So for the bigger businesses in the room, because it's a little bit expensive to buy, but it's a product called Ceros, and you'll see this whole page is built on Ceros. This is how people want to consume information today. They don't want to download an ebook anymore. How many people have downloaded an ebook, say, in the last week? Okay, and have you read that ebook cover to cover? No. That's what's happening in the world. And it's not because we don't love the ebook. It's probably a fantastic looking ebook and we would love to read it, but we don't have time. So we need to be interactive with our content and interactive with the way that we get our message to market. So just check out this afterwards, /conversations, built on Ceros. It removes the need to have a developer. The whole thing is built by your design department, and it's got modules and things in that you can bring in. You can have animations, quizzes. It's all interactive, conversational kind of tools in there for you to use that you can build straight away with your team without having to go to a developer, which slows the whole process down. So anyway, we're going to do a love story, and the reason we do a love story is because we're going to make a lot more sense, right? So we're going to start with the first thing if you think about a love story. So we're going to create this love story between us as a brand and our customers and our prospects. So the first thing we need to do when we're creating a love story is that we need to make the first impression. Okay, I think in the young world or whatever, that's your, polishing up your Tinder profile, but it's a little bit more than that when we're actually looking at this as far as a business is concerned. First thing we need to do when we're thinking about our first impression is who are we trying to impress? Now, this might be 101 marketing for a lot of people, but I'll be interested to know how many people have developed their buyer personas to this degree. Hands up. Okay, that's good. So there's not everybody in the room. So number one takeaway from today, please, is just have a look. We're sharing the slides afterwards. You take a picture of this if you like, but this is a typical persona profile that we would do with clients, or clients can do themselves. So this is one of ours. So for example, whenever I'm doing a certain piece of marketing or a certain piece of content that I want to put out, I'm putting it out to a lady by the name of Marketing Mary, or Mary the Marketer. Now I know Mary because we've done that much research on her and created this personic kind of data of her that I know what makes her tick. So I know the demographics, but more importantly, the three key things I know why Mary loves us. She loves us because she can learn about inbound marketing, which is the different process of marketing, the conversational stuff we're talking today. We provide her with the easy-to-use tools that make her life easier, so she can do her job better. And then more importantly, at the end, we understand her role in her organisation, that she has to prepare data and reports for the key stakeholders. So we make it easy for her as well to create great reports on her whole marketing and sales journey and her activity, what's working, what isn't working. So we do that because we understand all of that stuff about Mary. We understand, not just her demographic, which most target markets do, but we understand what are her goals in life. What are her challenges in life? What are her common objections to why, as a prospect, she wouldn't have dealt with us? So what are the common, say it's price. If you know that most of the prospects, when they get down to becoming a customer, fail to become a customer because of price, we need to get that further up in the funnel. So we need to really understand what are the common objections to not going ahead and working with us, and try and educate further up the funnel before they even get to us. So there's a few things there, but understanding the buyer persona is super important before you can even start to move into building a love story or a conversational marketing strategy. The next thing, which is more important, and this is super useful. Anyone seen this one before, brand voice? No? So take a picture of this, guys, if you can. But this is important. This goes back to what I was saying before about most businesses today have multiple people doing their marketing. So if you've got someone doing social, you've got somebody else doing blog posts for you, somebody else updating your website, how do you know they all are doing the same thing around your brand voice? Because you might have your brand essence right, your why strategy from Simon Sinek, but how is it being communicated to the market? Someone who's working in a silo in social will take that message and give it in a totally different way to somebody else who is maybe sitting in a silo doing blog posts. So by doing brand voice, you go through your team with this. So anybody working on your marketing, and you start with volume, and you work out, with our brand voice right now, how do we want to be heard by our customers in the marketplace? Are we more about being whispered or softly spoken? Or are we more down the other end, which is kind of loud and in your face? Like we really want to rattle the world. You know, where does our brand fit in there? And you can put it in between dots, but you decide where your volume is. And then you go through the same process. You decide where your energy is, from chilled to manic and effervescent. You go through sociability and decide whether you're more of a one-to-one, close-knit, or you're much larger, broad community, and then finally attitude. And this is an important one-pager that you share with anybody and everybody. Not just your marketing team, but also your sales team. Like how's their tone of voice when they're dealing with customers, when they're actually promoting the brand? Because if you get that whole brand experience right, from first touch point to customer to delight after being a customer, you're going to have far more success. People are going to want to stay with you. You're going to create what we call that stickiness with a brand, that people don't want to leave you because they feel that they're part of your business. And the reason we do that is because this is what the buyer journey looks like today. It wasn't that long ago, if you remember, the buyer journey was just simple A to B. Back in that big A word, the advertising world, all we used to do is pay lots of money to TV stations and radio stations and press, run an ad, hopefully then the phone would ring, and they'd buy something. That was the A to B of the journey. The journey now looks a little bit like this, where it's kind of everyone. There's multiple touch points. Let me put it in perspective for you. Here's an example. This is Stacey, who is an example of someone that's going to buy a new car. This is the journey that she went on to buy a new car. Hopefully you guys can read that. 900 digital touch points in 3 months. 900. She went from Google searches to YouTube videos. She then looked at a bunch of images. This is that they tracked her. And this is what we can do today. We can track people to see how they came to you as a customer, to see how they got there. She looked at dealer interactions, and then she went through a bunch of manufacturer interactions, because obviously then she decided on the car, so she then starts looking at the types of cars. But how could you possibly, if you didn't use technology, keep up with that? She looked at like 14 brands before she finally came down the funnel there and chose the final brand that she wanted to make the purchase with. Took her 3 months, 900 digital touch points. I mean, it's not kind of rocket science, because we probably do all of this stuff, but we, for some reason, think our customers and our prospects are different. They're just going to find us magically and call us because we're the only ones that can do better than others. So we need to really think about, how do we tap into that? The buyer journey itself can be simplified into these 3 stages. So we've got awareness, consideration, and decision. So it's the old funnel aspect. Like, people go through, and this has been around for a number of years. It still generally is true. You need to understand the conversation you have with a prospect at an awareness stage is totally different to the middle of the funnel, at the consideration stage, and to the decision stage. The problem that we generally have, especially with salespeople, they all focus on decision. They just want someone to buy from them. And we don't realize that people at awareness stage are so far from being ready to buy from us that we should not be talking about it. We should just be helping them, nurturing them, getting that conversation happening and moving them down the funnel. If we develop it a little bit more, you can see how we kind of added in there conversion and retention, because the bit that was missing from that 3-stage buyer journey is delight, right? Once we have a customer, the job only starts, it doesn't finish. Like, our customers are our brand ambassadors. They're the ones that we've gone through all the hard work to find, to bring to our business and buy our product. They love us, so we now want to put them up on a pedestal and get them to amplify their message to market and bring more people down. So, target market turns into a visitor, and we use certain types of content like social media and podcasts and SEO and blog posts, things that are educational. And the reason we do that, because it's driven by SEO, it's content that our people are interested in, right? And as soon as they're interested in that, they then move to a visitor. So they're coming to our website not by accident. They're coming because they've seen something we've done, or they've heard something, or they've read something, or whatever it might be. And then once they're a visitor on our website, social, whatever, we've got to then bring them to a lead, right? Now, a lead in our kind of environment or ecosystem is just someone where we have a first name, last name, and an email address, right? And that's just the general stuff of most CRMs, but certainly for us, for HubSpot, that's where we can then have a kind of a tracking, not to be the big brother, but just to say, okay, so you're interested in this, Well, I'm not going to tell you about this, I'm going to tell you more about that. And you're interested in that, so I'm going to tell you more about that. That's how the tracking works for that. Once we start doing that, we're giving them kind of content forms, we're giving them some content offers, we're giving them stuff that help them make a decision, and eventually they say, right, I'm ready to buy from you. Not we're trying to sell to you, but I'm now ready to buy from you, and then they become a customer, and then we continue to educate them, nurture them, email to them, invite them to events so they become a brand ambassador. And then they go and tell more people, and it goes back around again, and the target audience hears about these brand ambassadors, they want a piece of that, and away they go again. So that's kind of how the buyer journey should kind of operate, and really where we should be working. And all we're trying to do here is do one thing. And this word I love in any business we need to remove. Wherever you can see friction in your business from a buyer journey perspective, you need to remove it. How can you? By moving little bits of friction, and we've tested this stuff. So we work closely with data all the time because of things like HubSpot and Google Analytics and everything else. Like, we love data. So we can see where those little blockages are. And when you remove a little blockage, and it could be like there was one for one of our clients is EasyPay. They've got a 4-step application form. It used to be one long application form to get subscription billing for your business. We turned it into a 4-step application process. The first step is just what? First name, last name, email. The next step asks for a bit more information, third and fourth, and we can see where people drop off. And then we can remarket to them to help them move. We can A/B test at different stages, and we can speed it up. So what happens at the end? We're getting more applications in because we haven't just given them this long form, friction-driven application form. So how can we remove the friction in our businesses? That's what we need to be learning about over the next 2 days. So when we think of friction, we think of, is the funnel frictionless? The old marketing funnel, as you can see here, marketing sales funnel on the left. It's kind of built with a lot of friction, isn't it? It's assuming that people are going to drop off from marketing to sales. It's assuming that people are going to drop from sales to customers, and assuming that at customers it all finishes. So it's not right, is it? You've got to realize, I think, that we've moved on from the funnel. The funnel's easy for us to explain, but it's not practical when we're trying to do our sales and marketing journey. So hence, introducing to you guys the Flywheel. Who's seen the Flywheel before? Okay, a few people have seen the Flywheel. Well done. So the Flywheel was introduced or brought to life at Inbound, which is a big conference in Boston where I'll be next week. It's once a year, this time last year. So the idea with the Flywheel, which I love, and we've been using it ever since, is the fact that it's frictionless, right? It assumes that marketing leads to sales just naturally. Sales leads to service, and service then goes around and away we go again. It means that we don't have separate departments anymore. No one lives in silos. We now call our sales and marketing department the smarketing department, right? So if you have a sales department and a marketing department, from now on we're calling it the smarketing department. Sounds good, doesn't it? Smarketing department. So try and create a smarketing department in your organization where sales, God forbid, sales and marketing are going to work together. They're going to be the revenue department. They're actually going to work together. Instead of sales complaining that marketing gives them terrible leads, and marketing saying, we gave you a great lead, why didn't you convert that sales? Can you imagine that? Sales and marketing working together. And these are kind of the strategy sessions that we do with clients today where we get them in the room. Bring in your, instead of having marketing doing something over here and sales doing something over here and even service doing something over, bring them all together as the revenue department to work on that whole buyer journey and this kind of system together. It's what we call the customer-centric approach, and everyone's been talking about it. We're customer-centric. Really? I mean, this is customer-centric. Customer-centric is your contacts, your customers are at the center of the universe for your business, and then outside of that, marketing, sales, and service revolve around. People come in, the attract, convert, close, and delight that you saw before, the buyer journey, and then you've got, in the outer you've got your strangers, your visitors, moving down to leads, customers, and promoters. All that stuff I just showed you, all layered up into this lovely wheel that spins. And when that wheel spins, it creates energy. And when it creates energy, it creates growth. So we call this like the growth wheel, which is really what it's about, the flywheel, which is the growth wheel and the growth suite that kind of goes with that. More about that as we go forward, but that's kind of like setting the scene for the very first thing. So we're getting our impression right, okay? That was a long-winded way of saying let's get our impression right? But we're getting ourselves to step one. We're getting ourselves to that area where we're saying, right, we're ready to move. So now we're going to move to the marketing qualified lead or the first conversation. So we know who we're talking to. We know how we're going to talk to them. We've set everything up. We're ready for kind of action. We've identified who we need to speak to. So now what we need to do is we need to have our first conversation. So how are we going to do that first conversation? So there's a number of different ways. Obviously, there's Messenger, right? Messenger is one of the fastest growing ways for people to communicate. Who uses Messenger effectively in their business? Who uses Messenger just as a personal connection device? Right. So you guys can't see everybody's hands. I can, but most people put their hands up for the second option, but not for the first option. So why? You guys are all prospects as well as you are individuals, to your own business. So Messenger now has grown substantially. This 70% on Facebook now are actually B2B type purchases. It's not just a social platform for B2C. A lot of people think that social is more the consumer, business to consumer. But we're getting a lot of results for business to business because so many people are using Facebook or Instagram, or there's a new one that I won't tell you about today, but anyone heard of TikTok? Okay, you're already onto it. Well done. Who's downloaded the app and started using it? Well done, folks. Okay, well, we're ahead of our time here. That's good. I was in the US earlier this year in New York and Toronto for DigiMarcon, and they were just talking about this TikTok thing has just gone crazy, especially with the Gen Zs, this new generation. It's like the old Vine video type stuff, short-term video, but they reckon it's just going to take over. So anyway, that's another story. But as you can see, what's happening with messaging right now, messaging apps have surpassed the users of the 4 top social platforms. So more people are using Messenger and messaging apps like WhatsApp and things like that. So we need to think about, if we're not using it in our business now, why not? Is it a resource thing? If it's a resource thing, I'll show you some technology that does it for you and helps you kind of do it. Your sales team should be accessible via these types of conversations. So yes, let's start using Messenger. Let's also start thinking about chat. People are wanting to have conversations with us, and they want to have conversations with us about our product and our service. We don't want to use the FAQs anymore, guys. These boring FAQs that you've got to search through. Okay, I've got a question. What do I have to do? I have to try and find someone that wrote a question similar to mine, and then is that the answer I want? And then if there's an answer, I've probably got another question. What do I do then? Scroll back through there. So the FAQs are getting replaced by chat. The ability for people to ask those questions, because that starts the conversation which leads to the sale. So we need to start thinking about that. Here's some results for you of how these kind of messenger apps work at things like this. You're at this event right now. So this was one that HubSpot did for Grow. They do Grow with HubSpot once a year. This was, I think, last year for Melbourne and Sydney. And they had an app that was on Messenger, so a messenger conversation. So you could be here now, everyone's got a phone, and you arrived at this big thing. There's kind of 1,000, 1,500 people at this venue, all different things happening. But the interesting thing for me with those results are down the bottom there, that by using the app, if we just look at Sydney, because they started it in Melbourne, learned and tweaked it, and then by the time they got to Sydney, they worked it out a little bit more. But in Sydney, have a look at that. 78% of the people opened it up during the day. So they're here right now. They're looking at the app on Messenger, and they're playing with it. 65 meetings were booked with the guys from HubSpot during the day, right? So how instant is that? You're running it around, and they could straight away, they could book it in, and then there's conversion rate there of 15%. So people love that frictionless experience where they can just book straight in, have a conversation, and then go and meet with somebody, rather than wandering around thinking, well, who do I need to speak to? Where do I go? That kind of sort of stuff. So start thinking about how, if you run events, I don't know if you do in your businesses, events are very, very popular for marketing and having conversations. Here's a tool for a middle of the funnel offer, right? So a middle of the funnel offer, which is one that we did for RESMED. This one so remember that consideration stage, right? So at that consideration stage, people are kind of thinking about, do I want the product? Do I not? What am I looking for? I'm trying to self-assess at that middle of the funnel. So this particular offer is a sleep assessment. So for those that guys don't know RESMED, they're about detecting whether you have potential sleep apnea, and then giving you a sleep disorder, and then giving you some kind of results, some CPAP therapy. So this thing does really, really well. This is a middle of the funnel offer we created for them a couple of years ago that they've used across their brands. And you just go through, it's built on HubSpot, so all the stuff that's being put into this is now being put into the CRM in the back end. So when the sales team come in, they can link to it and they can see all the answers that are being said. They then put in the submission, and it says straight away, based on the calculations, whether you are high risk, low risk, or mid risk. So you've self-assessed. Think about how you could use something like this in your business. 3 possible answers, you could have a few more. But what they've done is kind of middle of the funnel self-assessed. In the back end, the client now has all that data. they can now decide if you're high risk, they want to reach out to you because you are a prime prospect for their product. If you're low risk, they might put you in a little nurture program that says, here's some tips on how to sleep better, healthy sleep, that kind of sort of stuff, education. So you can see how you can triage people into a different workflow based on their result. But talking about results, let's see how it works. I mean, you probably all know the kind of average rates of things. But let's have a look at this. The conversion rate on average of this is greater than 40%, right? So greater than 40% of people will fill that in. The industry average for this type of middle of the funnel conversion for a landing page is 4%. That's massive, 4% to 40%. The lead generation form that is built on HubSpot saw monthly leads triple for this organization, an increase of 150%. So they increased. But the important part of it was these last two bits of information. 25% of those leads were more qualified because they'd taken time to go through the self-assessment tool. So at the end of it, 25% of these leads went on to become customers who purchased a home sleep test. So the one step, like what you call an opportunity, one step before becoming a customer for RESMED is you do a home sleep test. You pay for it, comes to your house, and you wire yourself up and you do a proper study overnight. But 25% of those people, because they self-qualified and it said, hey, you could have sleep apnea, did the home sleep test. But then at the very bottom there, if you guys can see it, 10% of all of those leads went on to do long-term sleep therapy. So 10% became customers from that one tool. So you can see how that middle of the funnel has nurtured them down to a customer by getting them engaged in a conversation where they're self-assessing where they are. So how could you use something like that in your business? So let's move on now to the sales qualified lead in our love story. So we're going to do the building of the relationship. So this is the thing that's super important. So our building of the relationship needs to understand that we have this thing called the omni-channel. So the omni-channel is such an important part of what we do because we need to not only think about that flywheel with the customer-centric, but also how does all of our touch points kind of go together. If you guys have an e-commerce or you have social networks, you have a physical store, for example, RESMED does, word of mouth. How do you make all of that kind of relate together in kind of one big ecosystem? So they're all relating to the customer can jump from one to the other. Ideally, you know where the customer's gone, you know which one they've gone, which track they've taken. But this kind of stuff, by thinking in an omni-channel way or conversational marketing way, the best part of it is it's scalable. So I know they were talking before about the different sized businesses in the room. So if you're a startup business or if you're a bigger business or an enterprise type business, this type of approach to marketing is scalable. Like you can start really, really small. If you get it right at the start with your brand and your omni-channel kind of experience and all you've got is a customer and maybe one little website or a landing page, you can then grow. If you're a big business, you can bring everything together in a conversational way so you're all talking from the same song sheet and you're all delivering that brand experience. Because ultimately what we're trying to do, folks, is this. We're trying to create an experience for people where wherever they are, whatever part of the business that they touch, we're always delivering the right message at the right time to the right person with the right information on the right channel every single time. Take a breath. But I'm sure we all agree, if we could do that in our businesses, how successful would our businesses be? Yeah, do we all agree? If we could do that, right. We can do that with the help of some technology, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, because it's very hard to do that manually. How could you possibly know where everybody is, all the working parts are, and whatever else is happening? So it all starts with your website. So this is our website. How many people have live chat on the website? Okay, not as many as I thought. So live chat is not that hard to do if you've got a sales team. If you don't have a sales team, it can be a little bit harder, but your sales team should be available for conversations because they're your sales team. Like, surely a traditional salesperson doesn't want to have to go out and find leads. Gone are the days where we have to pick up the phone and we have to try and find someone to sell to, right? They've got to understand that people should come to you. And if they're on your website and they're interested, they're going to start the live chat. They're going to want to talk to somebody. So live chat should pop up. It's not that hard to do. And it should connect straight through to the sales team, sales CRM, or someone's CRM. So it pops up on the screen. You haven't got someone sitting there all day just waiting for the first call to come in. They're working away, and this is how it works for me. It pops up and it goes, someone's ready for a conversation. The way we've got it set up, anyone use Slack? Yeah. So this can connect to Slack. So we're all on Slack all the time. You've got messages going left, right, and center on Slack. Talking to your team members, talking in Slack channels. You create a Slack channel, which is kind of new business. and it will just come up as an inquiry, the same as it is with Slack. So you start having this conversation as you were on Slack, but you're actually having a conversation with a live prospect on your website. How cool is that? That's kind of where we need to be in terms of technology. And then we need to create these lovely little things called chatbots. I know our presenter before lunch was saying he doesn't like chatbots. I love chatbots. Who else kind of likes chatbots or thinks they're kind of interesting? Yeah, who hates them? Okay, maybe we're a bit outnumbered there, but that's okay, because I want to explain a little bit about chatbots. So there's actually two types of chatbots, right? So there's the chatbot, which is an intent-based chatbot, right? They're the ones where I agree are frustrating. They're the ones that are driven by AI. So it's kind of like IBM's, Watson, that kind of sort of stuff. So it's driven by AI, and they're the ones that try to understand and have a human conversation with you and generally fail. Ask Jess. Anyone use that on Jetstar? Terrible experience. Was yours all right? Terrible experience. They should sack her. Anyway, Jess is terrible. You ask a simple question like, how much is a flight to Perth now? And she comes up with prices to New York or something totally different. Like, it's not hopefully no one from Jetstar here. I know Qantas wasn't, but maybe the people from Jetstar didn't put their hand up. But that kind of experience, I agree, is frustrating. But this is what we call a nurture bot. So a nurture bot is just helping you make a transaction. It's helping you find something. Your FAQs I mentioned before need to go. They need to be replaced with one of these. Because how easy is it for me to throw all your FAQs in the back end of here and I ask a question and it will just go to the database and put up an answer. But the idea is you've got to triage people down to a solution. You can't let them go off on a tangent. So you'll be giving them some of your content. You'll be putting them in for a meeting with someone. But the whole idea is you're trying to create these kind of conversations offline. Because what did we say before? Like, these could be happening at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. I get these meetings in my calendar all the time. And I come in and there's my meeting and it's been put in there by the chatbot that someone's had a conversation with at like 9 o'clock at night. And then they booked into my diary at 10. I can go into my CRM, I can see the conversation, and then I can pick up the phone or Zoom, and then away we go with the conversation. Very effective, but that's where chatbots, I believe, work rather than the other ones, which are a little bit further to go. If you are going to, from this weekend, these 2 days, go off and create your own chatbot experience, just think about creating the narrative first. I think people get confused with chatbots in that sense, and they start creating the bot. They think, oh, let's do this, let's do that, and you go all over the place. Create the conversation first, like roadmap the conversation, go down how you're going to triage people down, and then you build the bot. And the best people to do that are the less technologically advanced or enabled people in your organization. Generally, you normally get the tech team to start building a tech bot, but they only talk in a technology type language. So get your sales team, your marketing team, people like that to build the narrative, and then your tech team to build your chat bot. But they're the best people to have conversational design. And then just think about those three things about time to live, shared knowledge, and scope. We haven't got time to go through those today, but the time to live thing is pretty interesting. That, we used to have email, and people were quite happy to wait for email, for a number of days or something for an email to come back. I think social, sometimes you can kind of wait 10 to 12 hours for someone to come back. Live chat, I think, is like a couple of minutes, and then you're gone, if that. But chatbot's instant, because it should just come up straight away, and the conversation starts. And that's where we're getting to, this instantaneous information gratification. I need the answer now, I can't wait. And if you won't give me the answer, your competitor probably will. And that's why we need to be really thinking about what can we do right now to bridge that gap. Here's an example of a chatbot. So this is one that we did for a company called Elterton Homes. And it was a kind of a joint venture we did with Facebook, actually, because it was a messenger chatbot. So just to go to get the information, this is how you would go through if you were wanting to book in to go to one of their new display homes. Right, we're all familiar with display homes. You're thinking of building a home, you select what you want to do, you think, okay, I want to organise a personalised tour. So we did this actually as a test between what they had traditionally and doing it on a kind of a seamless messenger way. If you wanted to book in to go to one of these personalised tours of the display home, you would simply fill in the details. So you're putting in your details and you would select everything, and then you'd go forward, and then you would have to wait because you'd have to wait for them to come back. So we thought there must be a better way to kind of do this, and as I said, in partnership with Facebook, so hence the Facebook ads that we ran, we actually created this kind of like ad for them around display centres visit any time. Like, we will open the display centres when you want to go, right? We're all busy people. You don't have time on the weekends when they're open between 10 and 4 or whatever times they're open. You might want to go 8 o'clock with your partner in the evening one weekday to have a look at this display home. So we added a bit of video in there because obviously video is very good. You should use video in a lot of the ads and stuff that you do. So we use video. We did a kind of like a teaser. Think of a movie. So we teased the inside of this particular this particular display home to make it look like a teaser for a movie. So people would say, oh, I really want to go and see this thing. And then we created the chatbot experience, which, sorry, a bit of an echo there. And as you can see here, the process is that it becomes a conversation. So this is linked from the ad that you've just seen on Messenger, and then the conversation starts. You say, yeah, I'd like to go through. And it just basically talks people through, when would you like to come? What display home are you interested in? There's a few examples here. You can scroll from left to right. You can have a look at the display home. There's maybe 3 or 4 that are available that are open on this particular time. And then you can sort of go down from there, and then you can just kind of like say, yeah, well, I really like this particular one. And then you can actually make the booking. They can show you some insides here of what it is. They show you the human that's going to be taking you around, and then this would send off a calendar booking to the actual person, the display center rep that's going to take you around, and then they grab your email at the end, and away it goes. But you see how conversationally and seamless this is, rather than it being a form to fill in. We've got to start thinking about how do we change the experience from a form to something that's really seamless, like a messenger app or a conversion app or some kind of chat bot. So let's get to the final stage then. So we need to make the commitment. So we've kind of built that relationship up. We now want to make a commitment for life, or a commitment to buy a product at least. So this is where technology comes in. So I want to share with you some tech, because we all agree we can't do all of this kind of stuff. And there was a few questions, I think, earlier on, and happy to have conversations with anybody about their technical frustrations, because this is the reason why you guys have technical frustrations. In 2011, there were 150 companies in the marketing technology space, right? You're all in marketing mostly, so 150. How many today? How many do you think today? Throw me a number. 100,000. I hope not. 150 to 100,000. 2,000, I think someone said. It's actually close to that. It's just, I think, gone over the 5,000 mark now. But this is what the actual ecosystem looks like. If you were to buy a marketing technology stack today, you have over 5,000. This was the Martech 5000, which was released, I think, 2 years ago. It's now over 5,000. But it's very hard to see anything in there. But you can see how it's very, very difficult for you to choose a marketing platform that can do most of what you do. This is kind of the stuff that helps. So there's an independent place called G2 Crowd. I don't know if you've heard of these guys. There's also one called Trust Radius. So Trust Radius or G2 Crowd. If you're ever looking at a piece of software, not just marketing, you might have something for your sales CRM, whatever you want to do, social media kind of platform or whatever, go to any one of those, trustradius.com or G2 Crowd, and these guys are built on user testing the software. And then rating it based on how it rates by people. Because the main thing is it has to be effective, but it also has to be user-friendly. Because you try and take a new piece of software back to your business and get people to use it, and it's not user-friendly, it won't help. From the marketing automation kind of platform space, HubSpot we talked a little bit about is up there. Salesforce is up there. You want to be in that top right quadrant, by the way, in this kind of map that I've pulled out of G2 Crowd. This is the latest one for 2019. Market presence, like how many people in the market are using it, that helps because there's more of a community, and community can help you kind of solve issues, and also it generates more interest for the developers to do more features. And then, satisfaction down the end. So high satisfaction, high market presence. You've got your Salesforces, your HubSpots, a few different logos and stuff up there, Adobe sort of over to the other side. So those are things and you can deep dive into it. That's just a high-level graphic for you guys to look at. The HubSpot one I mentioned before, that's what the growth flywheel looks like. I mentioned at the very beginning of this talk. And the idea with, for example, just using HubSpot as an example, having that kind of whole sales, service, and marketing around you. One of the big things, and I'm not here to sell you HubSpot, but just to kind of put it in perspective for you, is the fact that for you to invest as a startup business in something like the whole growth stack, which is everything, it's your sales, your marketing, your service, all on a platform, is about $150 a month, right? The technology has come down in price so much now that it's affordable. But you have to be sure that you're investing in the right piece of software, because once you do, it's very hard to rewind it back again, and it's got to talk to everything. So how good are the integrations of the platform you're using? It needs to talk to things you already have. And then for the bigger businesses in the room, that whole growth stack that you see there for a bigger business is around $1,500 a month, running everything from sales, marketing, and service. So super important to think about it. Have a chat with me if you have any questions about any type of platforms, because I think it's important that you have something that works for you. I'm happy to answer anything I can to deliver that, to deliver the awareness, consideration, conversion, and retention, so you can manage your whole buyer journey and understand, more importantly, where people sit. So instantly, you should be able to pull up the data and see where people are actually sitting in that whole buyer journey. This is just some of the quick stacks, just to show you, in a company like us, just to be transparent, this is what we use, right? These are the range of not just HubSpot, but I don't know how many of those you guys use, but I try to kind of set these up across the journey, right? So I just go, so SEMrush, anyone use SEMrush? SEO platform, yeah. So SEO thing, great. You want to know, how your words work. What are the keywords? What are your competitors doing? That's SEMrush. I mean, Google, everyone uses Google, but we use Google completely through the whole organization. So all our Google Docs, Google Drive, Gmail, like everything is now to Google, which is really super frictionless when you're dealing with the whole organization. We have a thing called Mural. Anyone use Mural? Okay, check that one out, Mural. So Mural is it's a card-based visual tool to be able to explain stuff to people and communicate to it. We use it for like road mapping projects, but you can actually pull up coloured cards. People can tune in from online or in the room, and you can actually set up these like colour, like design thinking. So you can brainstorm stuff with your teams using Mural. Quilla, anyone heard of Quilla? So Quilla is our proposals are done through Quilla. So Quilla it's got video embedded in it. I used to take me an hour or so to do a proposal for a client. It now takes probably 5 minutes. So I pull up this thing called Quilla. It's like an online cloud thing, and I can pull in modules. I can put in what I want. I can put in a video, and I can send it. A link goes to the client. They can look at it. I can see when they look at it. I can see how long they look at it, who they share it with, and then they accept it, and then it goes into the CRM. So again, reducing that seamless. When someone's ready to buy from you, how quick and easy is it to buy from you? Teamwork. Anyone use Teamwork internally for their teams? So Teamwork enables everybody to kind of work collaboratively together on projects, and you can do time management and everything. Databox, I think someone mentioned that earlier on today, but Databox and Grow are your overall big brother reporting mechanisms for you to actually be able to see how things are performing, like where people are, how your channels are performing, how social's performing, which channels are performing better, how many conversions are coming from things right the way through, how your team are performing if they're using Teamwork. Like, this is all really just, data is such an exciting thing in this day and age. If you're not using data, and this is not expensive stuff to do, you can get a whole transparency, and your key stakeholders or managers in your business need to see that sort of stuff to make tweaks and amendments to get better performance over everybody. Okay, I'm going to finish, and then we might have a few minutes for questions, guys, with this brand experience story of mine. So this was an experience. Anyone use Lyft? I think, is Lyft in Sydney yet? Anyone heard of Lyft? Yeah? Okay, so Uber, everyone's heard of Uber, right? So this is my Uber versus Lyft brand experience, right? And this happened in Monrovia in Los Angeles, where our office is in the US. And we were visiting there last year, and they said, last year or the year before, and they said, there's a special deal on for Monrovia, which is a suburb of near Pasadena in Los Angeles. And they said, it's basically 50 cents on Lyft to travel wherever you want to go. I thought, well, that's good. I've never used Lyft before. I always generally use Uber. We didn't have to travel that far, but within the suburb of Monrovia. So I thought, great. So I downloaded the Lyft app. Booked the car, experience the same as Uber, arrived at the destination, but then I got the bill, and it was $5.80. So what do? I mean, most people are not like a tight guy where I'm going to say that's $5.80 and it should have been 50 cents. But it was the experience, right? I'd been sold the idea through word of mouth that it was a 50-cent journey, and now I was paying $5.80. So I thought, okay, what do I do? So I actually went back to the app and got connected to their chat bot. And I just put it in. I thought I'd give them some feedback. And I'd go, guys, it was 50 cents and I got charged $5.80. I don't know what was wrong. Anyway, this is how the conversation went. So it's called the Passenger Help Bot. Okay, so it's a bot that's set up. I don't know if it's a real person, I don't know if it's AI, but the conversation was like I was dealing with a real person. And you can see the story here. So it comes up. Is that clear enough? Yeah, it says, thank you for using our passenger help bot and let us know about your recent ride issue. We take every ride very seriously. A member of our customer support team will email you once we start the review process, right? Now, what was good about that is I got a response, but what I didn't like was the review process. What is the review process? How long will that take? You know, I don't know if you guys have ever had issues where you you've gone somewhere and you want a refund or something and the thing takes 30 days, 90 days, like it's crazy. So anyway, just note the time, guys. It was 9:26 a.m. I just arrived at the office and I got that back from the passenger help bot. The next thing I got back, which was, can you see the time up there? 9:31. So this is actually from James, right? So this is actually from the person that is obviously got it. So like within a few minutes, the customer response was happening. Probably better if I read it here. So it looks like there was a promotional credit, should have applied. As courtesy, I've gone ahead and refunded the full amount of $5.80, which will return to your account in 5 to 7 days. Now, how do you think I was feeling about that? I was expecting what? A refund of $5.30 maybe and 50 cents. They refunded the whole lot. Our mistake, have it all back, right? And then he goes on to say, welcome to Lyft, Tony. We are happy that you're part of our community. Stay safe, have a great day. Anything else I can help you with the Lyft? Brilliant. Within a few minutes, that was their process, right? So me being a fantastic customer was so impressed, I wrote back to them and I go, thank you, Lyft. I love your service, right? And that's kind of how we would think it would end. But no, they came back to me again and said, you love us, but we love you even more. You're very welcome. It's our pleasure. I'm more than happy to. So I kind of ended the conversation there because I thought this love could go a little bit too far. And I've never met James before, so no idea who he is. But see how that frictionless experience now, and I'm here today telling you about Lyft because of my experience. That's how we need to be thinking about conversational marketing. How can we make that experience so great that people want to tell us that they're delighted? And then they attract more people. Whether you go and use Lyft or not is up to you, but my Lyft experience now is far better than my Uber experience. And then you engage and then you delight and the whole thing goes again. That's how the whole business model works. And the reason that we do that is because of this thing, brand choice. As we move into 2020, folks, people are winding back being connected with multiple brands. Generally speaking, we want to be connected with just 5 brands. That's what they reckon, 5 brands we want to be really connected with. It doesn't mean we only use 5 because we need lots of things, but 5 brands that we feel they're part of their tribe. Our challenge today is, are we going to be one of those 5 brands for our customers and our consumers? And if you follow conversational marketing, I think that's kind of where we're going to go. So don't forget the love story. Start your love story with your customers /conversations. And check that out. And a lot of what we spoke about today is in there. I think we have 2 minutes for questions. Anybody have a question? I've done all the talking, guys. You've got nothing to say. Okay, we have a question over there. To your right.
Thank you so much for that presentation.
Pleasure.
Just going back to your brand voice slide where you were sort of suggesting that there's brand voice, do you take into account that your voice might be slightly different based on the stage of the funnel and based on your audience segments and things like that? Like, was that supposed to be an example of something, or are you suggesting that you do have a shift in voice or the way that you kind of engage with customers throughout the different stages?
Yeah, so it's a good question because the way you kind of deliver the voice does change that little bit. But the idea is, and we just finished a workshop for a college where they're moving, they want to rattle the cage a bit. So they're moving their brand voice from traditionally where it is right now to where they want it to be. So we did that whole workshop. The whole idea of that brand voice is, yes, it does change, but the concept is to have one key overarching umbrella voice for the brand, right? Because at the end of the day, when you get into a conversation at different levels of the buyer journey, the actual words you use and the conversation content that you deliver is different, but the brand voice should kind of stay or have the essence of the same. So I think, probably where the confusion is if say you decided, right, our brand is going to be loud, our voice is loud, it doesn't mean your voice as in the voice of your people. It means your brand is seen as being loud. Like it's, I can't think of a kind of a loud kind of brand now, but if you think of a brand that's really out there and in your face, that's a loud voiced brand. But obviously if they're having a conversation with someone about buying a product, they're not going to be shouting at them. So you have to kind of balance it around. But the whole idea is having this one brand voice that everybody can get an idea of, so they're not, sending stuff out which is cozy and warm and whispery and, very, very kind of tight, if then someone else is over here pushing stuff out which is kind of loud, because then the consumer's thinking, is this the same brand I'm dealing with?
Hi, how you going? Just on that too, do you have any tools or recommendations in terms of how you brief that in, say, to an external copywriter who isn't across kind of some of the nuances of your brand voice? We've had issues in the past where they've taken that too literally, and what we've had come back is just, if you say loud and then everything's just sort of pumped out in, short sentences or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
You're just seeing my face as a giant orange block.
You've got to kiss it, I think. This is the whole point of it, I think.
But yeah, so that's, one thing in terms of the briefing process, ideally to have someone in-house understanding the brand, but when you have to go externally, have you got any recommendations on how you actually get, that brand voice across the different channels, across to a copywriter?
So there's two ways I would suggest, right? And to be honest with you, if everyone heard the question, it's just like using external, in this case, blog writers or content writers externally to the company. It's an interesting one because a lot of companies don't have their own internal stuff. And in fact, we have our own internal content, but we also use external content writers for clients as well. So there's two ways. One is it comes back to the brief, right? So the brief that you give the content writer, generally when we've got a template, and I'm happy to share it with you. We've got a template that we give to our content writers, which basically has who the persona is. So importantly, who am I talking to? So what are the goals and the pain points of the persona? Because if the content writer, regardless if they're in-house or external, doesn't understand who they're talking to, it's not going to work. Secondly, it's important to have that brand voice piece in. But obviously just explain to them that it's not to be taken literally, that this is what we're trying to do. And secondly, I'll always try with content writers to try and get them to give you either you give them a piece of content that is in the right tonology for your brand, or you get them to write the first piece and then you give them feedback on that. Because once they've got one piece of content, generally content writers know the voice then and they know how to do it. The last part I was going to suggest, which works extremely well, and this is for anybody in the room, is if you're doing it for the first time, is actually talk through what you want them to write about. There's a thing called Rev. I don't know if you guys use it. So rev.com. It's an app on the phone. You record in conversationally way what you want this blog post to be. So you just talk into it and say, okay, I want a blog post about this. I want it to do this, and I want it. So they're hearing your voice from the brand, reading out the brief. And then you go to Rev, it's $1 a minute, and they will transcribe that into a format, and then you send that to the copywriter. So you're actually if you go straight to writing them a brief, you've lost a little bit of the essence of the brand. But if you read it out and record it, you're still getting the same result at the end, but it's actually your voice that's being transcribed. Yeah? So try and use rev.com.
Hi, sorry, I had another
That's all right.
question too.
It's a popular table over here.
Yeah, sorry, lots of great insights in there. The frictionless experience omni-channel, I think, maybe that's not what it was. Sorry, there was the one where you talked about how you can identify, you gave the example of the car buyer and how you could map their journey and how many interactions and touch points they'd had. And you mentioned that you can actually start to see that now holistically. How are you doing that? You're obviously able to kind of know that they've been exploring competitor websites or have been looking at YouTube videos, etc., across a range of different brands.
Yep.
How are you getting that picture?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that you can do, and there's obviously privacy stuff that you can't do. But the whole idea of so for us, a lot of it is just combining a number of different pieces of kind of technology together. So, HubSpot, I know I've spoken a fair bit about that, but, HubSpot tracks social feeds, keywords, uses of keywords, that kind of stuff. Google obviously tracks a whole bunch of other stuff around analytics and a whole area of that. And the whole idea is using this technology to bring it all together. So we can track people to a certain extent of how they came to us. By our social. So in that essence I was showing you there is you need to understand that when someone buys from you here, that if you've done the job properly and using something like HubSpot, everything is in one space, I can tell whether Joe Smith first came to me by a social feed. They clicked on a social post or viewed a social post. They searched by these keywords. I can tell that. I can tell when they first came to my website, then where they went. It gives you this whole, in the CRM, a whole track record of all the touch points they've had before they finally became a customer. And then we use this technology called lead scoring. And what lead scoring does, predictive lead scoring, is it takes that journey that Joe Smith has gone on, and then it predicts, based on your current database, like-minded journeys that are currently sitting in your database, and then spits out a whole bunch of prospects that match that kind of criteria. So it's pretty amazing stuff, but it's just using data in the right sense and understanding that people just don't do A to B anymore. They don't just call you up and away they come. Thanks very much for that. That was Conversational Marketing.